Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's a Wednesday morning over here, West African time. So it's 9 a.m. here in Nigeria. So as usual, is Coin News Extra Weekly blockchain and cryptocurrency panel discussion. So this is our season two, episode two. So we are starting the second episode season this year. So it ran all through last year. It's the season one, so this is season two, and this is the second edition for this year. So we'll be looking at promoting blockchain and cryptocurrency adoption globally, looking at what is happening in the ecosystem. We see there should be a lot of things to be done for global promotion and adoption. So with me today to talk about this amazing topic, we have innovators and people who are doing amazing work in the ecosystem. I have with me Rhett or Oudkerk, who is the founder and CEO Europe Chain. Rhett, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleased to be here.
You're welcome. Thank you. So also joining Rhett is Carlos Gomez, who is the CEO Political Token. Carlos, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And it's very good morning here from the East Coast of the United States. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for waking up so early to come talk about blockchain. I know it's very early over there. And also thank you, Rhett, for joining us. So we will be looking at promoting blockchain and cryptocurrency adoption globally. But before we proceed, let me introduce myself. I'm Lee Uchama, the CEO of CoinUsers. I will be moderating this panel. And I want to give a shout out to our partners and sponsors, Hot Community, Project Hydro, Sigma, and MTech. Thank you very much, our audience who are joining us from Facebook and other of our social media handles. Thank you for joining us. So let's move straight to the topic of the day. Let me start when we talk about promoting blockchain and cryptocurrency adoption globally. Let's start with blockchain and crypto adoption through education. So we know people have to understand what they are going into or what they are venturing into. So let me start with you, Carlos. Are there much awareness or educational materials and content for people to consume?
Well, thanks, Lee. Certainly, in education and availability of resources, we have come a long way since 2016 or 2017. There are certainly a wide range of resources out there. The quality varies widely also. But yeah, so people have more option, even freely on YouTube, for example, or that kind of content, which is great. I also pay content. So it's there are now way more tools for people to do a basic research and get into the first steps into the ecosystem. So certainly, yeah, things have changed a lot, and there is way more content available in a very easy way, so to speak.
Interesting. Reds, still talking about education. What ways can one be educated and enlightened about the blockchain and cryptocurrency ecosystem? Reds?
Well, what Carlos says, I think there's a lot of material available. You see mainstream media sometimes still communicating the old narrative of it's highly volatile, it's big risk. I think that has changed over the last 6 months with institutionals coming into crypto. I think it's a big difference, the crypto world and the blockchain world. The crypto world is a lot about store of value, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the blockchain world is a lot about use cases, about projects. I also see a lot of geographical differences. I'm from the Europe chain. I think in Europe, blockchain has completely different utilizations than it has in Asia or in Africa or in South America. And I think a regional approach to education and a regional approach to solutions is very key. We are working on a chain for India as well. And the regulations on that is completely different than the regulations on Europe. And it's hard to educate ourselves even on this topic of what is allowed in India and what is not allowed in India. So I think there's still this big step on education to do. especially on the regulation side, because simply we cannot get the answers that we need to take steps. So we're definitely not there. And yeah, like I said, crypto and blockchain are two different worlds. Also on the educational part.
Yes, yes, I understand. When it comes to, you made mention of regulations, we know regulation plays a lot of role in this. We'll get to that. So, Carlos, do you want to add something?
No, I agree with Rhett. So it's really important for people to understand that regulation. I'm sure we'll talk about later in the program. It's a key topic. It's very different from country to country, and it could be a game changer or could be a total blocker in terms of implementation of projects. So it's depends on where you are. Things are going to be very easy. No, not very easy. It could be normal or really hard. So yes, the geographical difference are massive and can be ignored.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you very much. So for our audience, we'll be accepting questions from you. If you are joining us from Facebook or are you live here with us on Meet, you could drop your questions. When the time comes, we'll pick them and ask our dear panelists. So we'll move on to the next aspect of this. So we are looking at innovation in the space. These are some of the things that will promote adoption. Rec, let me start with you on this. What are some innovative opportunities and potentials of blockchain and crypto?
Yeah, I think it's again, crypto and blockchain very different. The whole decentralized movement will create a completely different world. The best way to talk about it, in my opinion, is saying that we're creating the internet of value, the internet of transactions. Currently, we have the internet of information, and because we can't do any proper transactions, basically everything needs to be free to do it efficiently, and you get business models that are based on that free transaction model, and as we know, if it's free, then you are the product. And so this new world will bring a world of transactions, a world of value, and that can be in very simple things like trading art on the blockchain. It can be on very complex things like a completely new social media structure where you get paid to contribute. To explain that some very simple concepts are necessary to understand. In this new world, we can have transactions of 0.0001 euro or whatever currency, or ether or bitcoin or whatever you use. So you can have very small transactions, and that creates for entrepreneurs a completely different business model, because paying for something very small currently is not available in a classic banking system. And so we will see all kinds of new use cases, things that you just pay for. I always love the example, I think IOTA has that on the website, where cars negotiate how to drive a train of cars. So the first one in the train of cars, of course, has the most headwind, and the cars behind have less headwind. And with the internet of value and the internet of transactions, you can negotiate how to pay for that train, basically in real time, live on the highway to ride a train of cars. And of course, you don't pay €5 for that. No, you pay 0.0000 whatever for it. So the opportunity there is enormous. We will see all kinds of different use cases that utilize that.
Yeah, that was very nice. Let me come to Carlos. You are into politics. How can government? So when we are looking at this, we have when I talk about crypto and blockchain, we could say, look it from the side of CBDC for the government. Blockchain, we know, is a technology. So how can government and companies leverage blockchain and crypto to enhance their businesses and governance?
Well, Well, certainly, just continue from the first question and coming about the new user cases. In addition to the darling of the current times, which is DeFi, we're seeing a lot of application. And one is SoFi, which it's benefit a lot from these microtransactions that you Rhett just mentioned. But also there is a huge application in the space of politics. We see a lot of companies developing their business models into fintech. However, there is a brand new group of companies developing into polytech or technology at the service of politics. And certainly governments are trying to take advantage of this. The main use cases are the democratization of the democracy, so to speak. Before that, we used to have only the top-down structure where governments organize elections in a certain way. And well, the United States, a typical example that was almost unbelievable. It's 6 months ago. Someone would tell you that pretty much 48% of a country like this won't have faith on the electoral results. So the way now that we can simply get an immutable ledger organized where people can simply review and check that their voice have been properly recorded. It's key. But let's go one step further, and it's when we talk about election and democracy, we only the first thing that comes to mind is the election of a prime minister, of a president. But we're forgetting that all of us in our day-to-day life are making quick decisions in our micro universe. For example, if we live in a building, well, the owner society have to make quick decision. Do we fix the elevator? Do we paint the fire? If we have kids in a school, we have the PTA association. So we have to make a small decisions that could be sometimes very difficult, very difficult to track. So I think the way that we're making easy for people to organize a civil society and get the voice heard in a very organized way, it's magic, and it's happening a lot here in the United States. Also in Italy, we're seeing a lot of development in the model. The city DAO, so the city decentralized autonomous organization, it's a new trend on top of the obviously DeFi and the NFT models that are creating nowadays. So that's part of the question that we see in the future. So hopefully that space will get traction in the society. It's getting a lot, certainly here in the US, because well, there's a strong need for that. I'm ensuring all the countries will be the case as well.
Yes, because most especially you see what is happening in the political sector, I will see what blockchain can do. There are a lot of issues when it comes to election. So
Yeah,
we believe
yeah.
this blockchain, due to its transparent nature, could play a role in helping solve these challenges. So we are talking about earlier on with about regulation. So we're looking at regulation has also affected blockchain adoption globally. So because of the different regions have their own regulations, and there are clearly uncertainty about regulations. Let me say, so has uncertainty about regulation really been a hindrance to crypto and blockchain adoption globally? Carlos.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's every time that the thought is spread in social media about, for example, X country is going to ban transactions or mining rigs, so the price just start to move in a crazy way. But then when the regulators issue a letter or issue an opinion publicly, well, things tend to settle down. So I think that there is only one thing that it's worth about regulation, and it's not regulation, because the lack of it creates uncertainty and creates fear among entrepreneurs and among users. So my particular opinion is that I'm pro-regulation. So we just need to lobby the regulators in the proper way. Obviously, this varies country to country in the way that things work. But things are getting traction. The regulations are hearing what we need to say. The licenses are getting less bureaucratic and less, I don't know, more adaptable to the current times. So I think certainly it's certainly a very pervasive thing in the space. And but thankfully yes, things are moving in a positive way. We still hear things from Christine Lagarde about the need to regulate globally certain things, and that creates a lot of discomfort among the community. But rather than to run away or get uncomfortable, let's embrace it. Let's deal with them because we have to. We have no other option, and let's try to educate them in a better way. Obviously, the opinions of certain regulators are very misguided and miseducated. So I think it's up to us. It's up to us. If we want to get something good out of it, well, we need to be proactive rather than simply sit back and then start complaining about their lack of forward thinking into their opinions, into their drafting. So we should cooperate and we just join their space to co-draft the legislation. We're not going to get everything we want, of course, but I think will be better.
Interesting. When we talk about regulations, we've seen a lot of countries mostly not having issues with blockchain technology, and most of them having issues with cryptocurrency. So it has really been a confusing one. So, with the REC, what is expected of the regulators, or what are we expecting from the regulators?
Yeah, well, like Carlos said, we need this clarity. I think we already have a lot of regulations. I'm part of a group that's called Two Tokens, who studies what the European Commission needs to do to stimulate this market space. And the conclusion that we make is that basically all the regulations is in place. The only thing that they need to do is say, okay, this is this and this and this and this and this. You see it on a global scale. Is XRP a security or not? I mean, it's a very simple question. You should have clarity, or you should have an office where you can go to and say, okay, I'm in this project. We want to do this. How do you rate that? What do you? And that needs to be like fixed answer, saying, okay, this is a security, this is an utility token, and it falls under this category and this. There's a lot of Additionally, there's a lot of regulations, like, for example, in Europe, you have the GDPR, the privacy regulations. I studied almost all the academic papers on that, and the conclusion, 70% of the academic paper says blockchain cannot be used in combination with GDPR. Because the right to be forgotten cannot be implemented. So many of the chains, many of the global chains are illegal in Europe. And you see that happening right now. You see large enterprises experimenting with Ethereum, experimenting with all kinds of blockchains, and nothing goes from proof of concept to production, because moving from proof of concept to production, it needs to pass some milestones. And one of the milestones is this regulatory compliant? Is this GDPR compliant? Is this privacy compliant? And the answer is no. You can't launch a project on a public blockchain very easily if the right to be forgotten isn't implemented. So, and there's a lot of enthusiasts, technical people, entrepreneurs that start to build without consult the lawyers. So that's why also we built the Europe chain, because we offer that as a toolbox where you can build a regulatory compliant application on top. So I think what you need to do is, as a project team, really get everybody around the table, lawyers, entrepreneurs, technical people, and look properly at the regulations. Every country is different. So Europe, fortunately, the GDPR is a pan-European regulation, but it's relevant for every company in the world that want to service Europeans. You have to be compliant to that ecosystem. We're launching this India chain and Europe chain. The Europe chain is already live, and we got a lot of feedback from system integrators that says, "Oh, I love what you guys are doing. because now we can deploy a solution on the India chain if it needs to be compliant to the Indian regulation, and we can deploy it on the Europe chain if it needs to be compliant with Europe. So that is an approach that system integrators is particularly like.
Interesting. Like over here in Nigeria, last year the regulators were looking into how to regulate the ecosystem, and they brought up some regulatory guidelines, which I know they are still working on. Hopefully, this year, I will believe many nations will come up with regulatory guidelines and regulations properly. So, moving from regulations, let's move a look at the utility, because there have been some discussion about the real use case of some most cryptocurrencies. So, Rhett, what are the real use case of cryptocurrency?
The real use cases for
Hello?
crypto. Yeah, you hear me? You
Yeah,
hear
go
me?
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear
So the
you.
real use case for the real use cases for crypto. Well, again, there's a difference between crypto and blockchain. For me, blockchain is a lot more interesting because we really can solve the IT stack problem. We can build a new Internet of Transactions, and of course, we need to pay for that, and that's why crypto comes along. And the utility of crypto is, like I said, in the microtransactions on one side, a store of value. I love Bitcoin. Um, uh, I think it can have a really interesting utilization. If you go down that rabbit hole and you educate yourself on what is money and what is the history of money and what good things and bad things came out. The fact that you have inflation and money and deflation and that sort of things, then I think that's very important for every individual and every family to educate yourself on, because there's definitely some interesting things going on there that many people are not aware of. And so I think the crypto space, as crypto as in money, creates a lot of education in the world on store of value and the simple fact of what is money exactly. People that have lived in countries where you have a failed currency usually are much better educated than a typical European or American who basically doesn't know what the negative effects of centrally controlled currencies are. So this is absolutely an interesting space where everybody needs to educate themselves. But I think your audience is already educated, because otherwise they wouldn't watch this show, very likely.
Yeah, like Rec, there have been discussions about cryptocurrency not having real value, and it depend is the most people call it a bubble. Do you think so? There is a bubble that is waiting to burst?
You asking me? Yeah, no, I don't.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bubble. It's clearly have utilization, and uh, you always with everything that everybody says, you really have to look at, okay, who's saying this, and why is he saying this, and does he have any interest in the answer, basically. So um, and yeah, so if it comes from the banks or from the Central European banks, then an answer from them should be viewed in that ecosystem. I think educate yourself. There's a lot of good YouTube content available, and in my opinion, we are going to a world where Bitcoin has stored of value, and all kinds of um separate products will be launched over the next years, where smaller transactions will be possible. Yeah, I really believe that we're creating something new here.
Interesting, we are creating something new. Let me, Carlos, will you add something to this? What's the real use case to blockchain? the real use case of blockchain specifically.
Yes, thanks, Lee. But before I answer your question, let me add something on top of what Rhett just said, because that's critical. He mentioned something about that the people who live in countries which currency it's a failed matter. I have a very education. I have a lot of more information than people, for example, in the United States of Europe. But this is something that have changed drastically in the last months. When you go now to the United States, when they're supposed to have a very stable currency, and you got the president says that they were going to print as many US dollars as they need to fix the pandemic, to fix a lot of things that are happening in this economy, which is a large market. And they said, well, we can do it because it's our currency and we got the freedom to do so. That's fair enough. But we have to remember that the US dollar, it's sort of somehow the reserve currency recognized by a lot of countries. And when you got a global reserve currency printing, I'm not going to say irresponsibly because I'm no one to make a judgment on that. But when you got in the 9 months, a potential increase in the balance sheet of the Fed Reserve of 6 trillion US dollar, well, things are going to change. Things are going to move very swiftly in the world. So now the understanding of having an alternative, having a cryptocurrency, having something that to store value is critical, even in established economies such as the United States. So in right now, not in the future, right now, this is a matter that it's not only a matter of developing countries with issues in the economy. So now developing economies are starting to feel in the heat. And I think we are one of these examples. So sorry about that. I have to add this because there was a great
No,
comment. And
you're absolutely right. One of the things that everybody should do is research what inflation does to your currency, and look at what the government says that the inflation is and what the real inflation is, and everybody feels that in their wallets, and so everybody understands that
you can hide it. Yeah, that's right. You go to the supermarket. You go to supermarket and you got slapped in the face every week. So it's shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's shocking.
Absolutely.
And nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about that.
So, but it's very critical.
Yes. Sorry, Lee. So back to your question about the use cases of blockchain. As Rhett says, I mean it's a completely different game, cryptocurrencies and blockchain. I'm going to give like an example. This example of the European legislation of the right to be forgotten. It's important, and we have to contrast that right with that. In once you are in blockchains, you are there forever. So technically and theoretically. So I think. We have to be cognizant of the a lot of business model coming to the space, which will base on an information that will be out there literally forever. So we have to be very careful. That's not a restriction, but I think this is something that companies have to serve. But having said that, in the case that is not applicable, for example, there is a lot of companies looking for traceability solutions when, for example, agricultural produce have to be traced back, their contribution to the carbon issues have to be properly traced. So there is a long way to go. However, there are certain things that we could benefit from the immutability of a ledger. In a decentralized way that can be just manipulated by a central actor. So this is all thinking. What's the main goal here? I think more business-like. Blockchain could fix things or could provide certain benefits in the personal way. It's way more delicate, and we have to deal with a lot more issues. So this is something I would like to comment. I know it's a very abstract answer, but I think it's all about understanding if what we want to record out there and what we should not be recording out there.
Interesting. Thank you very much for that. We have about two questions from the audience here. Maybe I'll take it. One was directed directly to you, Carlos. This one said, my question goes to Carlos. How do you see blockchain help in politics, considering the last elections we have seen lately in USA and Uganda?
Well, blockchain can certainly provide a spot-on solution, but however, as everything in life, garbage in, garbage out. So a lot of the challenges in certain states here in the US came from the database of elector. For example, is the elector alive? Is the elector, or is the elector already dead? So if we don't have a transparent and we don't have trust in the initial database that somehow we have to relate or have to use as an oracle, for example, whatever we put into blockchain will be tainted. So, so I think when it comes to election, when it comes to democracy, unfortunately, but I say unfortunately, we still have to deal and we still have to fix the centralized part of it, which is critical. So it's until we develop a model that we can just simply have a database of electors. And I think Australia, it's working and developing a solution on that. Long way to go still, but they're working hard. We unfortunately have to we have a witness in the initial step. So, but let's assume that we believe in our database. We believe that it's healthy, it's accurate, and reflects correctly the reality of the electorate. Well, once we have that hurdle, which is really big, actually really high, well, the technology is there to provide us like a solid solution for people to understand and to have trust that the democratic process, a fair democratic process took place. So I think the challenges are before we enter the blockchain when it comes to elections.
That was very nice. I hope that answers the question. Maybe, Rhett, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say every country in Europe that has been conquered by Napoleon has a proper system to administrate the people. So land tiles and people are very, very well organized in Europe, simply due to the fact that 500 years ago we were conquered by Napoleon, and he felt that was very important to have the administration in order, because that was the only way that he could raise taxes. So yeah, that is our history, and that's why these sort of things are properly organized in Europe, centralized. They work. They have been there for ages. So that are typical use cases for blockchain. And it's funny that there's been some researches on how blockchain can improve certain processes that are very well organized in Europe. And the conclusion is that it basically only adds value on the technical stack, on the data security layer. I'm a cybersecurity entrepreneur by trade. My other company is active in that field. And as everybody knows, the world has had its share of hacks, and it's still going on. And I really believe that blockchain is the solution for that. We use EOS.IO as one of the third generation protocols that does 10,000 transactions per second. There's other protocols that do thousands of transactions per second. To build this new world of Internet of Transactions, we need millions of transactions. So we need a lot of blockchains. We launched a chain for Europe, but I can imagine that we will have not one chain, but multiple chains offer all kinds of services. And you can see chains for some sort of democratic process, for elections. You can see all kinds of chains. You already see some specializations. There's chains for gaming. There's chains for non-fungible tokens. And chains for democratic processes are very likely to come as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just got a word from the technical department. We had technical issues. We are unable to stream live on Facebook, though we'll post after this. We are sorry for that, our audience who are waiting for us on Facebook. So we have the last question here from the audience. It said, what's the fate of fiat currency in the next few years?
What you mean with fit?
The question
Faith.
is the audience that asked it. What's the fate of fiat currency
Oh,
in the
fiat.
next in the next few years?
Well, if it's about the fate of the fiat currency, I think, well, let me be blunt on that. I think the doom, because even in the largest economy, the deterioration of the trust in fiduciary currency minted or printed by central banks is it's fading away. I seem free falling. So, but having said that, I don't think that the people would understand. I would simply migrate quite quickly into a sovereign stable coins minted by central bank as well. So still long way to go. I think they will cohabit for a while being, just because the people. It's because the education gap, it's because the fear gap, and it's because people are still used to that. But however, once the millennials are taking over the war, and just it's a that will be like a generation thing. But nevertheless, every day that happens. So if we have to have like some zero cake when we have 2%, 1% of users were people who believe that crypto would take the war, and people who believe that fiat currency will still rule the war. Every day that happens, that percentage is skewed towards the cryptocurrency side. So that's my opinion. So I don't know, Red, what
Yeah,
are your thoughts?
I completely agree. Big changes usually take a generation, as you already said. So Bitcoin is now 10 years. A generation is typically 30 years. So within the next 20 years, we will have a mix of fiat and crypto, and in the future shifting to more crypto than fiat is my opinion. But there's a lot of work to be done. Like I said, we need millions of transactions per second to be able to process that. Bitcoin does 8 transactions per second. Ethereum does 35 transactions per second. So we're completely in a different scale that needs to happen. But if you look back, not everybody's, I think, old enough, but I am. That the adoption of internet was pretty quickly, and there we need to dig cables in the ground. We had to build hardware. We don't need to do that anymore. Everything is software, so the adoption can be very quickly. And yeah, I recommend everybody to study what a Dutch guy, Plan B, is writing on Twitter. Read his thesis on that on store of value in Bitcoin. It's a good start to educate yourself.
That's a very nice one. Before we draw the curtain on today's episode of Coin News Extra Weekly Blockchain and Cryptocurrency Panel Discussion, I would like to get your closing remarks. Rhett, what's your closing remark?
Well, a little bit of commercial then. Look at europechain.io. That's our blockchain that we offer as a public blockchain for everybody that wants to build solutions for Europeans. On top of that, we have an enablement layer with an identity system and an asset management system. And we're building some other cool stuff as well. So absolutely interesting to see. And we're working on a chain for India. Another team has built a chain for South America. So I think a chain for Africa is something that we invite entrepreneurs to approach us for, because our approach is this geographical approach. We have been talking to some Middle Eastern countries as well that want to have their own country chain. So that is our model, building geographical chains really tailored to the local needs and the local legislations.
That's very nice. It's like changing the world.
Yes.
So let me get your closing remark, Carlos.
Oh, thank you. Here will be just simply, let's remind you that next Friday we'll kick off here in Miami, Miami Blockchain Week. That's an initiative triggered and organized by the local government. So I'm amplifying the voice of Mayor Suarez, who wants to transform a city as a crypto city. So he's also thinking of putting 1% of the city reserve into Bitcoin. So this is something that was unbelievable months ago. So I think there are a lot of things happening here in America, especially in Miami, and it could be replicated all over the world. So I'll recommend to keep an eye on social media and internet and just look for Miami Blockchain Week, because there will be a lot of content out there at all levels and complexity. So there will be, from the educational point of view, it's going to be gold. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have my own closing remark. So, in case if for your information and everything about crypto and blockchain, you can visit CoinNewsExtra at www.coinnewsextra.com. You can search for us on Facebook at CoinNewsExtra, or you can also search for us on YouTube at CoinNewsExtra, on Twitter at CoinNewsExtra3. So, whatever it is, come to us. We'll really make it happen. Thank you very much. I use this opportunity to appreciate our sponsors and partners. Once again, Hot Community, Project Hydro, Sigma, and MTech. So if you feel that you can also sponsor this program to enlighten people on a weekly basis, you can also approach us for sponsorship and partnership. So we'll see you on Wednesday next week, same time. But I want to appreciate our panelists who took out amazing time to come joining us talking about this. I can't forget to thank you so much, Rhett of Oudkerk, who is the founder and CEO, Eurocheck. Thank you for joining us all the way from Holland, Amsterdam. Thank you, Rhett. Okay, thank you very much. I also appreciate you so much, Carlos Gomez. You woke up so early to come joining us all the way from US. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks to be part of this panel. Thank you, Red, for joining
Thank
me.
you, Carlos.
Thank you, Liv.
Okay, thank you, our audience. Thank you so much. I remain your uncle, Lee Ucha.